Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Sports, and a very fun video today, a very interesting video, because a graphic has popped up showing the total playing minutes for the Springboks throughout the year, and it gives us a very good insight as to the Boks that have basically become sort of indispensable for Rassie Erasmus, and kind of gives you a bit of an insight as to which players have really taking the opportunities and become sort of key parts, and maybe which players maybe aren't playing as big a role. Now, this is always going to be slightly flawed. Obviously, lots of external factors will, influence your game time, the likes of injuries, for example, and suspensions, potential, changes early on in games, for example, like a Zach Porton who got subbed early due to red cards, the likes of that. But looking at this entire thing overall really gives you a bit of an oversight as to, first of all, how well we basically you spread out the minutes, the likes of that, with the most minutes being 824 and the least being sort of less than 100. But it kind of sort of shows you that there are still obviously sort of players who are playing almost every single game, but they themselves have missed a few games. And it kind of also shows you a bit of a rotation policy, really. So it provides quite a lot of really cool insights. Basically, we're going to be doing a whole Springbok wrap-up at the moment. We're going to be doing a winners and losers video, for example. We're going to be looking at a World Cup squad barometer, kind of see who's where with regards to the World Cup squad, how it's sort of shaping up for Rassie Erasmus. We'll kind of look at a little bit of our strongest 15 of the year, our kind of Springbok dream team, inverted commas. And if there's any other Springbok videos that you'd like us to do, please let us know down in the comments below, and we can get on to doing that. Right, let's get into this, shall we? So this is the graph, and it's been brilliantly done. It was posted on Reddit by, the username was Littershagen, and it's really interesting. So obviously we used a total of 50 minutes, 50 Springboks in all games, but not all the test matches. I think only 49 players played test match rugby, because Evan Lewis is here but did not play. He only played against the Barbarians, and that's where his it's actually Jason Dixon, somebody else, but only played against their minutes against Barbarians. So that sort of does count towards, but it doesn't count towards obviously a test match. But yeah, 50 players used throughout the season is the chat, which is really cool to see. Now, immediately is a very big stalwart of a name at the top, and Damian de Allende. He played 824 minutes. He only missed a total of 4 matches throughout the year, and he only played less than 60 odd minutes in one other game. So Damian de Allende, I think, is probably one of the most underrated rugby players on the planet, and this sort of shows you just how underrated he really is, given the fact that he's 34 years old by the end of the time he finished the year, and 824 minutes playing a lot of rugby, and yet just the consistency he brought. The biggest winner, I think, this year is Ruan Nokia. He has become completely indispensable to the point where he only missed 3 matches throughout the entire season for the Boks. And it was Japan, he only played 30 minutes, but he became such a key figure, for the Boks. You look at, for example, those two. Look at the key games: 62 and 68 minutes against, 51, 50, and 80 minutes against New Zealand, 52 minutes against France, 80 minutes against Ireland. Those are big games. 2 80-minute performances against Argentina. So he has become a player that's almost undroppable. He's in almost every single 23. Then after that, a lot of sort of some of your usual suspects, Malcolm Marx, Ches and Colby. This goes to show how Kane Moody, a player who wasn't getting a lot of game time last year, it took a while before he really got given a run, has also become indispensable. Who would have thought that beginning of the year, Ruan Nokia and Kane Moody would have been within the top 5 Springboks to have played the most minutes. Now, yes, there were a couple of injuries and the likes of that, which had to sort of cause them to cover. But at the end of the day, they still played those sort of minutes. And you look at Kane Moody, he's 23 years old, and he played 741 minutes this year for the Boks. Again, he only missed Barbarians, Italy, Japan, and France. So, but he played a full 80 against New Zealand times 2. He played a full 80 against Ireland. Then we've got PSF the Toy, Jesse Creel. Lots of people talking about the fact that Jesse Creel has been kind of on the way out. Well, the minutes suggest otherwise, And Kane Moody, obviously, him and Jesse Creel have been on the park at the same time a few times, with Kane Moody being able to cover wing. But plenty of minutes for him. Damien Willemse, which is interesting considering how he missed the first half of the season, Once he came back, though, didn't really look back. You know, he got 80 minutes against Italy and 26 minutes against Georgia. He then missed out on a couple of tests, came back for that New Zealand second test, man of the match performance, and after that, he just played week in, week out and was fantastic. Really, really good. It also goes to show how much investment we've put into Sash Zulu, that he played 618 games and only did not make the match day 23 on 3 different occasions. You know, and I think, to be honest, the picking order kind of shows. You look at Andre Pollard, he was the 26th most used Springbok, below Moini Bok and well below Sash Zulu. Again, it kind of shows you how some players have just elevated themselves to a point where they have to play a lot of game time. Kobus Reinach was our most used scrum half throughout the year, played the most minutes. But ironically, after sort of the top players, you know, your kind of top 7, 8, the amount of minutes is pretty spread. I mean, you look at Sia Khaleesi with 587 minutes in 10th place. By the time you take 100 off that, you can already get down to sort of almost sort of 19, 20. And there's basically only 150 minutes worth of difference between your sort of 30th most used Springbok and your almost 10th most used Springbok. So this really does show you how we have spread the load throughout the year. Now, obviously, some of this has been, injuries, for example, like Gerard Stennekamp is in 30th, but he only played his first game against Japan and still managed to amass 251 minutes, through that. But I think it really gives you a bit of insight. You know, look at the bottom here. Faf de Klerk, a sum total of 41 minutes across the entire year. You know, Jean-Luc Dupree, 42 minutes. He really missed his opportunity. You know, the likes of Kobus Visa didn't really get back. Vincent Koch has been kind of phased out. Maxwell Mapimpi being phased out. You know, you look at a Villy LaRue kind of being phased out. So there's definitely kind of a showing here as you look to the bottom of Bongi Manambi playing just 139 minutes, that there is a changing of the guard. That whilst there are still, your top players, and we're definitely seeing, I mean, if you look at the top 15 most used Springboks, they all go to the next World Cup at this stage. Damon Delende, Ruan Nokia, Malcolm Marks, Cheslin Colby, Kane Moody, Peter Steph, the Toy, Jesse Creel, Damian Willemse, Sash Zulu, Sia Khaleesi, Kobus Reinach, Jasper Wiese, Marco van Stad, Ethan Hooker, Kurtley Arendse. You know, those are all players we expect to get to the next World Cup. I mean, shout out to Sia Khaleesi after those knee injuries, for example. He was our 10th most used Springbok. I don't think he's ever been played this many games for the Boks. I mean, he only missed about 4 games. You know, after that Australia second game, which he didn't play in, he hasn't missed a game and started every single test from that, which is really, really positive from a fitness point of view. Moy Liebach playing more than 100 part, not much, but still playing more is quite interesting. I don't think too many people would have called that at the beginning of the year. You look at somebody like a Bone Fenter getting 237 minutes across the year. I think Jan Hendrik Wessels would have gotten a bit more. But it's an interesting graph. We will link the image down below so you can kind of go have a look at exactly, what you have to think. But it just goes to show that there's definitely a shift with regards to the players, the core players of the squad. And, Marco Verstappen, Ethan Hooker being within the top 15. I don't think we would have thought of that at the beginning of the season. And, Andre Esterhuizen, playing so many different games, all cameos, becoming sort of like that, similar like Kwagga Smith, for example. Kwagga Smith only missed 2 match day 23s. I think he's actually played in the most matches this year. But he's down because he only plays, obviously, the last stages of games. But it's an interesting graph. So go and check it out. Let me know what you think and how sort of the picking order and things are changing for the Boks. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.